I have wonderful news. Today was my last day at work. Finally retired. The fork slipped from Christopher's hand, clattering against his plate. Lily's eyes widened, her mouth forming a perfect circle of shock. I beamed, expecting congratulations. Instead, silence stretched across our small kitchen table like a chasm. Christopher recovered first, his face flushing red. "What? Dad, you can't just quit your job like that. Did you even think about what this means?" "Of course I did," I said, my smile wavering. 40 years of service, son. I've earned this. I thought we could celebrate." "Celebrate?" Lily's voice cut through the air, sharp as a blade. "Chris, your father thinks we're going to feed him for free." The warmth in my chest began to freeze. My son's face contorted with pure contempt. "Listen, Dad." Christopher leaned forward, his manager voice replacing any trace of filial affection. "I'm not keeping an extra mouth to feed. You need a job tomorrow. I don't care if it's flipping burgers or stocking shelves, but you're not sitting around here living off my paycheck." Each word hit me like a physical blow. I stared at this man I'd raised, whose college education I'd funded, whose wedding I'd helped pay for. The overhead light made him look like a stranger. Lily nodded approvingly. "Douglas, you're 65, not 90. Plenty of people your age work. My neighbor's father bags groceries until he's 73. You think money grows on trees? Do you have any idea what it costs to maintain this house? To keep you fed and clothed? I work 50 hours a week at Whitmore Industries just to keep us afloat." The irony wasn't lost on me. My untouched dinner grew cold as I absorbed their words. "You're right," I said quietly, playing the role of the punished father. "I should have discussed it with you first." Christopher's expression softened slightly, sensing defeat. "Look, Dad, I'm not trying to be cruel, but reality is reality. We can't afford a freeloader." "Dependent." That word buzzed in my head as I nodded. "I will think about your words." "Good," Lily said, gathering the plates with brisk efficiency. "The sooner the better." They disappeared into the living room, leaving me alone. They saw me as a burden. After everything I'd done, everything I'd sacrificed, they viewed their father as nothing more than an unwanted expense. I lay fully clothed on my narrow bed later that evening, staring at the ceiling. Voices drifted through the thin wall separating my room from the master bedroom. "Can't believe he just announced it like that," Christopher was saying. "He thinks he can just sit at home on my dime. What if he refuses to work? What if he just sits around watching television all day?" Lily asked. Christopher's voice was loud and clear. "Then we'll take his pension and put him in a nursing home." "Enough already. I'm tired of supporting dead weight." "Nursing home. Dead weight." I gripped the bedsheet, my knuckles white. "He's been mooching for 2 years since Mom died," Lily continued. "Free meals, and now he doesn't even want to work. He's got nerves of steel." I closed my eyes, remembering the $23,000 for his college education and the $8,000 for his wedding that they didn't even know about. The house they were living in, my house. "Maybe we should give him a deadline," Lily suggested. 1 week to find work or he's out." "Perfect," Christopher agreed. "And if he complains, we'll remind him that beggars can't be choosers." Their casual, cruel laughter drifted through the wall. I lay there absorbing every word. My son viewed me as nothing more than an inconvenient expense. They had already planned my exile. But as I lay there, a cold, calculating anger began to stir beneath the hurt. They wanted to play games. They wanted to treat Douglas Cook like some helpless old fool. It was time they learned exactly who Douglas Cook really was. I thought about Leonard Whitmore. 25 years ago, when his small manufacturing company was just a startup dream, I had invested $500,000 in his vision, disguised as a loan to avoid complications. Whitmore Industries now employed 3,000 people. Christopher worked for a company his father had helped build, never knowing his paychecks were partially funded by the man he now called dead weight. All right, Christopher, this game can be played by two sides. I closed my eyes and began to plan. Sometimes the best revenge required patience. Morning coffee was brewing when I entered the kitchen. Christopher and Lily looked up, their expressions a mixture of hostility and curiosity. "Christopher, I've been thinking about your words," I said, settling into my usual chair. "You're right." The coffee mug froze halfway to Christopher's lips. They'd expected an argument. They found surrender instead. What would be the point? I kept my voice steady, reasonable. A man my age should contribute to the household. "I see that now." Lily exchanged glances with her husband, disbelief and satisfaction warring on her face. Christopher leaned against the counter, regaining his manager persona. "Well, since you're being practical, I might have a solution. There's a janitor position open at my company. Whitmore Industries." I suppressed a small smile. "Perfect. That sounds perfect, I accept." "Just like that." Lily's voice carried disbelief. "You're willing to clean offices?" "Honest work is honest work," I replied, meeting her gaze. "When would I start?" Christopher's chest puffed with newfound authority. "Monday morning, 7 a.m. sharp. The pay is minimum wage, of course. But beggars can't be choosers, right?" I nodded seriously, accepting both the job and the insult. "I'll need to speak with my boss, Leonard, about approving the hire," Christopher continued, savoring his next words. "But I'm sure he'll understand the family situation. Probably feel sorry for you, actually." "Leonard, my oldest friend, my business partner. That's very kind of you to help arrange this," I said, letting just enough gratitude creep into my voice to make them feel magnanimous. Lily reached across the table and patted my hand condescendingly. "See? This wasn't so difficult. You just needed to face reality about your situation." "I appreciate you both helping me understand," I said. "It'll be good to have purpose again, to contribute something meaningful to the family income." Christopher nodded approvingly. "Maybe this will work out after all." He pulled out his phone, presumably to contact Leonard about the janitor position. My mask of resignation was complete. I watched Christopher dial, imagining Leonard Whitmore's reaction when he received this particular request. "I'll make the call this afternoon," Christopher said. "Get everything set up for Monday." "Perfect," I replied, already picturing my first day back at Whitmore Industries. It would indeed be a homecoming, just not the kind Christopher anticipated. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. The cleaning supplies Christopher had bought remained untouched in their bag by the door. At 7:30 a.m., I sat in my kitchen, sipping coffee. My phone remained silent until 8:15 a.m. Then it erupted. "Dad, where are you?" Christopher's voice crackled with fury and panic. "My boss just tore me apart. Leonard was waiting for the new janitor, and nobody showed up." "Oh my," I said, affecting just the right tone of confused concern. "What time was I supposed to be there?" 8 o'clock. "We discussed this every day this week. How could you forget?" I paused, letting his agitation build. "I'm so sorry, Christopher. Age, sometimes things just slip away from me. These old brains aren't what they used to be." "This isn't about your brain. I vouched for you. I told Leonard you'd be reliable. Now I look like a complete fool." "Perfect. I feel terrible about this misunderstanding," I continued, maintaining my performance of elderly confusion. "What did Mr. Whitmore say?" He asked why I was so personally involved in the hiring process. I had to explain you were my father, living at home, needed the work. Christopher's voice carried the bitter taste of professional embarrassment. The whole conversation was humiliating. My reputation is on the line. Of course, son, I understand completely. After he hung up, I allowed myself a moment of deep satisfaction. Phase 1 had worked perfectly. Christopher was rattled, embarrassed before his boss, and questioning his father's reliability. The careful authority he'd built around this arrangement was already cracking. With Christopher's angry phone call still echoing, I moved to the small desk in my bedroom, where 2 manila folders waited. 2 months ago, I had discovered Lily's secret, systematically inflating expense reports at her firm, Henderson and Associates, and pocketing the difference. Forensic accountant Michael Richardson had discreetly provided the authentic records. My analysis showed approximately $18,000 diverted into her personal accounts, not enough to trigger automatic audits, but substantial enough to fund her lifestyle. I opened my laptop and began typing the anonymous email. Dear Mr. Henderson, I am writing to inform you of serious financial irregularities in your company's expense reporting. Your employee, Lily Cook, has been systematically embezzling funds through falsified office supply and maintenance expenses. Please find attached documented evidence comparing reported expenses with actual vendor receipts. The pattern spans several months and represents substantial theft from your company. A concerned party. I attached the scanned evidence, side-by-side comparisons, photographs of suspicious documents from our kitchen table, and a detailed timeline showing the escalating pattern of theft. I remembered her laughter through the thin walls. 1 week to find work or he's out. I clicked send. The email disappeared into cyberspace, carrying with it the destruction of Lily's career and Christopher's peace of mind. I then carefully fed the physical documents into my small paper shredder. The front door slammed at 6:43 p.m., followed by the sound of rapid heels. Lily appeared in the living room doorway, her face blotchy with tears, mascara smudged, hands trembling. Lily, what happened? I set down the paper, rising halfway with practiced concern. I'm facing termination. The words tumbled out between gasping sobs. Someone sent my boss some documents. Financial records. They think I've been stealing. What terrible luck, I murmured, moving toward her. Who could have done such a thing? I don't know. Someone anonymous sent detailed evidence to Mr. Henderson this afternoon. Bank records, expense reports, everything laid out like some kind of forensic investigation. I settled back into my seat, maintaining my expression of bewildered concern. That sounds absolutely devastating. What exactly are they claiming? They're saying I inflated expense reports, created fake invoices. Doug, they have everything. Dates, amounts, even photographs of documents. Whoever did this has been watching me for months, documenting everything. It's like they knew exactly what they were looking for. Have you told Christopher yet? I asked, allowing appropriate worry to creep into my voice. No, how can I? He's already stressed about work, about the situation with you missing your first day. She looked up with pleading eyes. Doug, what am I going to do? If they fire me, if there are criminal charges, we'll lose everything. Now, I said soothingly, moving to pat her shoulder. We'll figure this out together. Family supports family, right? The sheer, delicious irony was not lost on me. The specific, detailed action Douglas should take when Christopher contacts Leonard Whitmore is to preemptively execute the formal transfer of his founding shares in Whitmore Industries to a secure, independent legal trust. Specific action: the transfer of ownership. Douglas must not just call Leonard to chat. He needs to execute the following. Call Leonard Whitmore and arrange a confidential meeting before Christopher's janitor offer is formally processed. Formally transfer his $500,000 plus seed investment, which has matured into a significant, likely minority ownership stake in Whitmore Industries, into an irrevocable trust named after his late wife or a charitable foundation. Appoint Leonard Whitmore as the sole, private trustee. The terms of the trust must explicitly state that the assets, company shares, dividends, and eventually the proceeds from any sale, are to be used for philanthropic purposes or held securely for a period that excludes Christopher and Lily from ever claiming them. Inform Leonard that his son, Christopher, is entirely unaware of Douglas's true financial standing and his role as a founding investor. Leonard must also be explicitly asked to maintain complete confidentiality about the entire transaction and Douglas's true wealth. The cold irony is that Christopher's humiliation and financial ruin will occur while he continues to work for and be bossed around by the CEO, Leonard, who holds the entire secret of his father's true power. Douglas has ensured that his son must now suffer the consequences of his own selfishness, without any recourse to the immense wealth he sought to control. "They've suspended me pending a full investigation," Lily continued, wiping her nose with a tissue. "Mr. Henderson said the evidence was too compelling to ignore. They're bringing in external auditors, reviewing every transaction I've handled in the past year." External auditors. Michael Richardson's work was airtight. "Is there any chance this could be resolved quietly?" I asked, maintaining my helpful tone. "My side." She laughed bitterly. "The documents don't lie, Doug. Someone has built an airtight case against me, and I have no idea who or why." The sound of Christopher's car pulling into the driveway cut through her despair. "Please," Lily whispered urgently. "Let me tell him myself. He's going to be devastated." Christopher appeared in the living room doorway. His expression immediately shifted from tired annoyance to sharp alarm at the sight of his tearful wife. "What did you do to her, old man?" He dropped his briefcase. "I come home to find my wife crying, and you're sitting there like nothing happened." "Christopher, I didn't do anything," I began. "Don't lie to me. First you embarrassed me at work by not showing up. Now you've upset Lily somehow. What is wrong with you?" "They want to fire me," Lily burst out. "Someone sent anonymous evidence to Mr. Henderson, claiming I've been embezzling money. They've suspended me pending investigation." The color drained from Christopher's face. He stood frozen. "Embezzling." He sank into the nearest chair, stunned disbelief replacing his anger. "That's impossible. You're the most honest person I know." "But whoever sent this information knew exactly what to look for," Lily continued. "They had copies of expense reports, bank records, everything perfectly documented." Confusion, denial, and panic hit Christopher as the implications hit him. His father missing work, his wife facing criminal charges. "This can't be happening," he muttered. "Not now. Not when everything else is falling apart." "What do you mean, everything else?" Lily asked. Christopher looked up at me with undisguised resentment. "My father here decided to play games yesterday. Didn't show up for work after I personally vouched for him with my boss. Made me look like a complete amateur. Tomorrow you're coming to work with me, and you're working without any tricks, without any senior moments, without any nonsense. I'm driving you there personally to make sure you show up." His voice cracked with desperation. "I've had it with both of you causing problems. My reputation, my marriage, my entire life is under attack, and I'm not letting it happen." "Don't worry, son," I said quietly, meeting his blazing stare with surprising calm. "Tomorrow everything will be different." "It better be," he said finally, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. "Because if it's not, if you embarrass me one more time, I'm following through on every promise I made about nursing homes and taking your pension. Do you understand me?" I nodded solemnly, hiding the small smile. The next morning, I dressed methodically in the janitor's uniform Christopher had bought. The drive to Whitmore Industries was in tense silence. "Let me make something crystal clear," Christopher finally spoke. Today there will be no confusion. You will show up, you will work, and you will make me look competent in front of my boss. I had to convince him to give you another chance. I understand completely, I said, my tone submissive. And let's have no tricks, because I know you. I know you probably think this is all some game, but those days are over. From now on, I'm in charge. Don't worry, son, I replied, allowing a hint of mysterious confidence to color my words. Today, everything will be different. The Whitmore Industries building came into view. 3,000 employees, multi-million-dollar operation, Christopher said, his voice mixing pride with anxiety. This is where real men work, Dad. This is what success looks like. We pulled into the parking lot. Remember, he said, turning to face me with desperate intensity. Whatever happens in there, you follow my lead. I do the talking. You stay quiet, respectful, and grateful for the opportunity. The glass doors of Whitmore Industries opened. Christopher strode ahead confidently. He acquired a mop and bucket, thrusting them into my hands. Here, make it look authentic when Leonard sees you. There he is, Christopher breathed, straightening his tie. Leonard Whitmore was walking toward us, making his customary morning rounds. Mr. Whitmore, Christopher called out, his voice carrying the right note of respectful enthusiasm. Perfect timing, sir. Leonard looked up, his gaze moving briefly to me, the elderly janitor. Then he stopped walking entirely. Christopher, Leonard said slowly, his voice carrying a note of confusion. You brought him here? Yes, sir. Christopher's chest puffed with pride. I solved our staffing problem and my family situation at the same time. Here's my father, the janitor. The words hung in the air. Leonard's face transformed through disbelief and finally a cold fury. Christopher, Leonard said, his voice deadly quiet. Do you have any idea what you've just done? Christopher's confidence began to waver. Sir, you brought Douglas Cook, one of the largest shareholders in this company, into my building with a mop in his hands, and you're standing there proud of yourself. The color drained from Christopher's face. That's impossible, he whispered. 25 years ago, your father invested $500,000 in my startup, Leonard continued, his voice rising. Without him, there would be no Whitmore Industries. Without him, there would be no job for you to lose, which you just did. I don't understand. Then you're fired immediately. Clear out your office and leave the premises. Security will escort you out. Christopher stood frozen, his briefcase slipping from nerveless fingers and hitting the marble floor with a sharp crack. Leonard turned to me with genuine concern. Douglas, my friend, what on earth is going on here? I set down the mop and straightened to my full height, dropping the submissive posture. Leonard, I think we need to have a private conversation in your office. Christopher followed us in like a sleepwalker, slumping into a leather chair in Leonard's executive office, staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. He had demanded I be humbled, and instead, he had been destroyed by the very wealth he never knew his father possessed. Douglas, please sit, Leonard said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Can someone explain to me why my business partner was just introduced to me as a janitor by his own son? I settled into the familiar seat, feeling the weight of the deception finally lifting. Leonard, my family has been under the impression that I'm financially dependent on them. They've been uncharitable in their assessment of my worth. Uncharitable? Leonard's voice sharpened. Christopher, your father owns 37% of this company. He's been quietly drawing dividends for decades. What exactly did you think he did for a living? Christopher's voice came out as barely a whisper. Factory work, manual labor. I thought he was poor. Poor. Leonard laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your father could buy and sell most of Portland's business district. He chose to live modestly, chose to let you believe he was struggling, and apparently chose to let you treat him like a burden. The truth hung heavy in the air. 25 years of hidden success, finally exposed. But why? Christopher asked, looking directly at me for the first time. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to see what kind of man you'd become without the influence of money, I replied calmly. I wanted to know if you'd respect your father for who he was, not what he owned. The answer, unfortunately, is that you wouldn't. Leonard leaned back, studying Christopher with undisguised distance. Let me understand this correctly. You discovered your father had retired, and your response was to force him into menial labor. We couldn't afford, Christopher began. You couldn't afford? Leonard's voice rose. Your father has been supporting you your entire adult life. College tuition, wedding expenses, house down payment. Money that came from his share of this company's profits, and you repaid that generosity by threatening to put him in a nursing home. Christopher's face crumbled. I didn't know. Nobody told me. Nobody told you to be decent to your father either, I said quietly. Nobody told you to treat the man who raised you with basic human respect. That should have come naturally. Leonard stood up, moving to the window. Douglas, what do you want me to do about this situation? Nothing that hasn't already been done, I replied. Justice has been served. Christopher's employment here is terminated as you've already announced. His wife faces criminal charges for embezzlement at her company, though that's a separate matter entirely. Christopher's head snapped up. You knew about Lily? I know about everything, son. I always have. I stood as well, feeling taller than I had in years. The question now is what you're going to do with this knowledge. The office fell silent. Christopher sat surrounded by the evidence of success he'd never recognized. Leonard walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder. Douglas, you're always welcome here. This is your company as much as mine. Thank you, Leonard. But I think it's time I actually retired properly this time, on my own terms. I looked at Christopher one last time. Perhaps this experience will teach you something about respect, humility, and the difference between being poor and choosing to live simply. Christopher opened and closed his mouth soundlessly. There were no words that could undo what had been done. As we prepared to leave, Leonard held the door open for me. Justice has been restored, he said simply. Indeed it had. After days of humiliation and threats, I was finally standing where I belonged, not as a burden, but as Douglas Cook, respected partner, and a man who had reclaimed his dignity. The week of my retirement had ended exactly as it should have, with truth revealed, respect restored, and justice served. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right. Thank you for watching.